Welcome back to the channel. Obviously, this decade is coming to a close, and we are starting a new decade. So I kind of wanted to give my top three of kind of the top three big entertainment categories. So that's games, movies, and music. So let's go ahead and start off with games, because that's the one I talk about the most. You probably know my opinion already on these. So my third favorite game of this decade is Black Ops 2. I think that is still probably the best multiplayer game we've gotten this whole decade. Whether you talk about map flow, the guns, just the overall community, especially that was the time YouTube was popping off and you had such a big Call of Duty community. You could watch people like Woody's Gamertag, 402 Thunder, all these people, and T. Martin was at the time not scamming little kids. You had all this content coming out. Everyone was just excited to play the game. The game had its problems, sniper, shotguns, and like that. But overall, I just think it was such a solid game. Everything was just fine-tuned, and it was just so much fun to play. And that's something Call of Duty is still missing to this day, that fun factor. Number two is BioShock Infinite. I remember when I played this game, I was so surprised how good it was in the overall tones that it was pushing. I mean, if you haven't played the game, it deals with racism towards the end of the game. But just the ending and how you are her father and how they twisted it all together. And then you have the core gameplay mechanics of, I forget the names that they called them, but the spells, you have the Raven one, you have the Bull one, you could lift people in the air and then shoot another thing at them. There were so many different gameplay mechanics that you could use your ability. You could spawn things, and just the map and the overall feel of that was amazing. Still one of my favorite plays or games to play, and I own it on Steam and I plan to play it again. But number one obviously is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. This game, so I played 2. I never really cared for 2 that much, and when 3 was coming out, I skipped on it. I was like, who wants to play The Witcher 3? I don't care for 2. And I was very mistaken, because I played this game in 2016, so a year after it came out, and it just blew me away. Whether we're talking about my favorite missions, like the Triss mission where you go to a party and you have a very intimate moment. This game has made me feel more like a douchebag than any other game. There's, spoiler alert if you haven't played the game, you can choose who you end up falling in love with. You could choose Triss or Yennefer. Team Triss. And there's a mission where you and Yennefer go to this boat and you lift a curse that's been on you. And basically Yennefer's whole thing throughout this is, if I lift the curse, you won't love me. And that's when you can decide if you want to go with Yennefer or not. And I remember the first time I played it, I told her I did not love her, and she's like, I knew it. And it fundamentally broke me. I actually shed a tear. It was so sad. It was such a rewarding mission. And this game, man, every time you do something, you're just getting rewarded for it. Your choices matter in an important way. I think this game has better choice making than the Mass Effect games. So obviously The Witcher 3, so good, so good. So let's move to movies. 2 of these movies that are in my top 3, I did YouTube videos about, so you probably already know what those are coming. But number 3 is The Wolf of Wall Street for me. I still think it's Martin Scorsese's best film of the past 20 years. I do think it's in his top 5 of just films overall. I do like it better than The Irishman as well. Overall, I love the energy that this movie has. First off, it introduces us to Margot Robbie in a very good way. You know what scene I'm talking about. And I really feel like this started the Leonardo DiCaprio, he just got put back into the limelight. Even though he did Inception and stuff like that, he wasn't looked at the way he was as the greatest actor of our generation, which he is. And this just skyrocketed to it. And obviously Jonah Hill's performance in this was great, and overall the story was just fun to watch, and it was just a fun movie. There's obviously problems with it, but it has an interesting take on what happened in real life, and it had very interesting characters and very funny moments, and that's why it's my number 3. Number 2 is Interstellar. Christopher Nolan's probably my favorite director out, besides Denis Villeneuve. He just nails everything he does. Christopher Nolan's directed Memento. He's directed the Dark Knight trilogy. So he really knows how to set the scale. And when you watch Interstellar, the scale is huge. I love all the visuals of this movie. You have the visuals where they're going into the black hole, and that whole kind of mind-bending thing, and just the overall twist of, you know, where Matthew McConaughey's character ends up at the end, and it all tying back to events that have happened in the movie is phenomenal. And obviously the score in this is phenomenal as well, by Hans Zimmer, who shows up again in this after we talk about Interstellar. He probably had one of the best decades ever of his career. But yeah, Interstellar was just phenomenal. I think the acting was top tier. I do think Anne Hathaway's character is a little off-putting, and I do think the whole falling love kind of thing they were going for doesn't work for me. But still, overall, when I just want to sit down and watch a good movie, and a movie that I, no matter what, will be invested in and just love to death, I turn on Interstellar, or this next movie we're going to talk about, which is Blade Runner 2049. What can I say about this movie? I never cared for the first one super much. I always thought it was a really good movie. I could see why people liked it. But at the time that this came out, I wasn't really looking at movies in kind of a deep way. I wasn't really looking into hidden meanings. I wasn't looking at what they were actually saying, what the film was actually saying, what the director was portraying, other than face value. And this is one of the first movies that it just clicked with me. And I said, okay, I want to learn more about this. I want to learn how to make movies because of this movie. And just overall, Ryan Gosling's performance is haunting. It is his best performance of his career. Maybe besides Good Guys, that's a good movie too, but this is phenomenal. Ana de Armas was great in this as Joy. And what I love about this movie is it's a true sequel. There was a story to be told, and they told it well. They weren't forced to tell the story like something like a Toy Story 4. This story needed to be told. And overall, man, the visuals of this movie are insane. You have the scenes where he goes to Las Vegas. You have the scenes where he's flying over Los Angeles, and just other big moments to happen. You have cool ideas like advertisements being able to walk up to you and talk to you. You know, the I guess over-sexualized nature of everything, and you know, kind of how replicants are looked down upon as secondary citizens. So obviously it kind of ties into what's going on today, but overall it was just such a phenomenal movie. And Hans Zimmer comes back and he absolutely nails this movie. I mean, you have songs like Mesa, Tears in the Rain, which was in the first one, Seawall, just all standouts. So overall, that's my favorite movie this decade. It's my favorite movie of all time. Now let's go ahead and finish it off with the top 3 albums of the decade for me personally. Number 3 is Kids See Ghost. And I'm going by this by what I listen to the most and what I'm still listening to this day. And I still listen to a ton of Kids See Ghost. Obviously, it's Kanye West and Kid Cudi. They had their Fourth Dimension song. You had Reborn, Cudi Montage. And there's so many more. You have the Kids See Ghost song. And I just like the Murakami artwork for this. I like that it went back to Kanye's older roots with sampling. And I think it is his second best album that he's been a part of this decade. I do like The Life of Pablo. That'd probably be 4 or 5. But overall, I just think Kids See Ghost is just a complete project. And every time I listen to it, it's a bump. I love it. After that, this album was number 1 for me for 8 years. This was the album I would go to listen to all the time. It is My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West. What hasn't been said about this album that I can say, I don't know. I mean, we can just go down the track list. You have one of the best openings to an album of all time with Dark Fantasy, and the overall themes of this brash kind of egotized Kanye coming out and saying, I am the best, this is why, and him actually proving it in musical format is great. You have beautiful songs like Runaway and Devil in a New Dress. Devil in a New Dress being my favorite Kanye song. What a great message, especially for the song Runaway, saying how he's been an asshole, how he's doing this, and he's making sure to tell the girl to run away. And then you have a killer Pusha T verse on there that just kind of wraps up the song perfectly. And it's a 9-minute song that I just cannot get enough of. And obviously it's a lot of people's favorite song of all time, and even on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. You have songs like Monster, which is just I can't explain Monster. I never liked it in the beginning. When I first heard it a few times, I was like, you know what? Like, this isn't that good, and never really cared about what was actually being said. And then I was, one day, like, I don't know, like a year ago, was just listening. I was like, this kind of bops. Like, Kanye's verse is really strong in this. I do think Jay-Z's verse is the weakest on that song, but I think Kanye puts in a really good effort, and Nicki obviously kills the song, but I think Kanye West kills it as much. You have obviously well-known songs like Power, All of the Lights, Monster being one of them, but there's songs like Lost in the World, which is one of my favorites, Blame Game, Hell of a Life, So Appalled, All of the Lights, which is another popular one, and then an underrated one, Gorgeous, with Kid Cudi. God, such a perfect album to start off this decade, which came out in 2010, I believe. What a phenomenal album by Kanye West. But there is an album that came out in 2018 that I've listened to nonstop. I listen to it every night when I go to bed. I have a bunch of the songs on there. I really can't stop listening to it, and I'm surprised because when this album was coming out, I didn't expect to like it, and I'll explain why in just a second. But it is Glory Sound Prep by Jon Bellion. So before we talk about that album, let's talk about how I perceive Jon Bellion. I thought he was an average kind of musician. I liked a lot of his songs, like Luxury and stuff, and the initiative and stuff that he was putting into his music was very good and very interesting. And obviously he was working on other songs for other artists, like he helped write The Monster, which also BB Rexa created. But I just thought albums like The Definition and The Separation were just kind of mediocre, or lackluster is a better term. They just overall weren't complete. And then he came out with the hot trash called The Human Condition. It is one of my least favorite albums of this decade, probably in the top 5. My friend David loves this album, and I don't get why. I mean, I just don't think that album has that many slaps in it. Like, you have songs like He Is the Same, which is just a bad song in general. And I think the overall themes he was talking about in the album were decent ideas, but stuff we've seen before. Songs like 80s Films were a great addition to the album, but couldn't carry the weight. Obviously, if you haven't listened to Jon Bellion, you will probably know the song All Time Low, which was the smash hit off of this. And it's a decent song, but I like New York Soul Part 2. That's really about it. I think Guillotine's an alright song. Morning in America is alright, but I think there's too many songs in this that are just alright and just other garbage, like Woke the Fuck Up. And Maybe I Don't Know is another bad song, to me personally. So when Glory Sound Prep was coming out, me and my friend were talking about it, and I wanted to listen to it to see if he has changed anything up and was going to be interesting again to me. Because I do like Translation Through Speakers, which is an EP by him. And wow, did he just knock it out of the park. First off, there is so many songs in this that have made it to my playlist that I listen to every single night. You have songs like Conversations with My Wife, JT, Stupid Deep, The Internet, Blue, Adult Swim, Couples Retreat, and Maj Joint. I like 8 out of the 10 songs on this album. And the other 2, like Let's Begin and Cautionary Tales, I don't hate. I mean, I don't really care for them, but I don't hate them. But songs like Blue, I listen to every single night, and JT I really like too. I think the swing on those is phenomenal, and obviously with Stupid Deep, that swing is fucking amazing. But I think the overall tone and the aesthetic of this album was phenomenal. I think Blue being the standout song for me personally. I just like how the drums flow, and then when he gets to the final part, that kind of, it's not like dubstep, but I don't know the instrument they were using, but that just kind of flow, it gets kind of picks up, and it's great. And I think Maj Joint is one of the best closers to an album of this decade. I mean, you have this kind of, very upbeat song with Quincy Jones playing, and it's very happy, and you think it's gonna end, and then all of a sudden it gets kind of really toned down and mellows out, and then this really heavy bass comes in, and just overall just encapsulates the whole album together. And it was just a phenomenal experience. I've bought so much merch from this album. I just love this album in general. I love the look of it. just phenomenal from him. So I am very excited for his next album, and he's made me a fan because of this album. I think this is a perfect album for him. So those are my top three, kind of for the top three entertainment categories. Run through the list again. For games, Witcher, Bioshock, Black Ops 2. For movies, Blade Runner, Interstellar, Wolf of Wall Street. And then albums, Glorious Sound Prep, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and Kids See Ghosts. Let me know your top three for each category down below in the comments. Make sure to like, make sure to share, please. I would really appreciate if you share. It's starting to get, winter break coming, so everyone's watching YouTube. So if you appreciate my work that I'm putting into this, please make sure to go like and share. Thank you guys for listening.